All right, welcome everyone back to today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Arut Sheva, and the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. And, of course, you can email me, messiahhour@gmail.com, or continue the conversation with Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi Katz, we've talked about some of the beautiful things about living in Israel, the Torah, the wisdom. I also understand I don't know if a negative sign is the right word, but there is a concept that someone has to suffer to live in Israel. What does that mean exactly?
How's it go again? It says that the land of Israel is secured through suffering. So it's an idea. I'm going to give you a specific lens that I saw, and it brings context. There's an idea that Mashiach ben Yosef is supposed to die, right? And the Vilna Gaon says Mashiach ben Yosef will live, will not die, as the verse in the Torah says, Od Yosef Chai, by Jacob and Joseph. Joseph still lives. So the idea is that Mashiach ben Yosef, the decree of his death will be overturned through pain and suffering in the land of Israel. Thus, the exile will be extended, and by its extension, the pain and suffering in Israel will save Mashiach ben Yosef's life. He will live, which then turns the redemption to Mashiach ben David in final redemption. What it means is that the catastrophe of kind of like the Armageddon response to redemption will become in a sweetened way, a merciful way. And that's because Israel, by securing Israel through suffering, harsh decrees are overturned. And we see this by being an Oleh Chadash, a new citizen, a new person that makes Aliyah, that if you think you're going to come here and not suffer to acquire your portion of the land, you may not make it too long. I've seen a lot of Anglos come thinking that, God will just kind of help them. But the bottom line is, I don't know if I've ever had to work this hard for anything in my life. And look, I remember my in-laws, when they came from Morocco, they lived in tents for the first couple of years. And they left behind servants and wealth. So every success story I know in Israel came with suffering. It brought tears to my eyes to see the early Zionists, as secular as they may have been, they built the country from scratch. I'm talking about, really the beginning part of the 20th century.
There was nothing here. There weren't roads. There wasn't running water. There was nothing.
There was nothing, and they knew they were not going to eat the fruit of this land. They were getting nothing back. They were going to die. They were old, right? Even until, I remember in 2001, the place was still archaic compared to what it is now. Now you come on Birthright, you say, wow, Israel's high tech and everything is great. When I first came, it was still, it was all right. And then my friends who came in the 70s and 80s, they had rations on how many eggs they could have at a time to cook and eat with. So every generation speaks about how hard they had it. And that just shows you the determination the Jews have had in building the land in a very short amount of time, which tells you why the neighbors are somewhat jealous. Because Israel was boomed. As the axiom goes, they made the desert bloom. They did.
Right. And this was talked about, I've heard some speeches on this, that if you look at our neighbors, they'd been in the Middle East for, 2,000 years, and still there was nothing. And the Jews came back, and we've been here less than 70, and it's booming. So I can see it's part of the jealousy. It's actually part of some of the cores of the issues of the current fight between ourselves and our cousins. Let's talk about if that makes the Jews in Israel a great people. Is that part of the idea of suffering to acquire the land? Not that it's some sadistic punishment from God, but something that would make the people great.
Well, this is what we're saying. The wisdom, the heir of the Eretz Yisrael will make you wise. And this is what I'm saying. Like, the way the country is, you have to have wisdom to survive here. To go to the bank, you have to have wisdom, right? They say that Google says, why, I think it was Google or who it was, why do you want to invest in Israel? And they said, because once an Israeli has entered the startup sector, he's already gone through the military. So he already is head and shoulders above his competition in terms of discipline, drive, will to succeed. I mean, this guy who you're hiring, Google, right? Smart Moshe, let's call him Smart Moshe. Smart Moshe may have been in 3 wars, right? Led a brigade, okay? Some kind of commander or whatever, captain, whatever he is. He's an army veteran, in the Middle Eastern warfare. Maybe was in the intelligence department. Maybe even has, nuclear information. And now the guy wants to invest or, be a startup worker for Google. I mean, you see, a lot of the conspiracy theories are about this also, that, Israel and its need for war has a leg up in developing, craft and warfare. And that sharpens the mind by definition. If you learn how to drive a tank in the army, which is not uncommon, you probably know how to drive a bus very well. And Ari, you know as well as I do, the bus driver in Israel is not the same as the bus driver in America.
Oh, yeah.
You see these guys parallel parking buses. I mean, it's fantastic what they do. And they'll zip through at 30 miles per hour. It's like, how in the world do you do that?
And will take change. They will dispense change while they're doing that.
That's it. And so the whole country is just operating on a level of wisdom. And it's a very, very unique set of circumstances. It's not American lifestyle where they say, sit back and we'll do it all for you and take care of you. Here, speaking about the bureaucracy thing, if you're going to get anything done, you have to work for the bureaucracy, right? You can't wait for me to give you the form, pat you on the head, and thank you for coming to see me in my office. You have to take the initiative, know what forms are needed, get them filled out. You have to understand it. I mean, I would say what sets the Israeli apart is he has the Talmud Chacham approach to reality. When I said the Torah scholar, meaning they learn documents here. They take crossword puzzles in the newspaper seriously. So everything's a competitive, neo-study exercise. Everything requires analysis, investigation, study. This is why getting a license is a big deal here. Is really study for that license test like you would study for the bar exam in America.
Again, this is a Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Arut Sheva. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, we're continuing the conversation with Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi Katz, it's my understanding that in the Babylonian Talmud that they, I guess, I don't explain exactly, but they had weird feelings to the Jews that were currently in Israel at the time the Talmud was written, the Babylonian Talmud. They referred to them as the Westerners. Right. So you already saw a conflict between the Israeli Jew, the diaspora Jew. Can you talk about how it refers to back then, and maybe things haven't changed, if there's still that conflict today?
Right. Israel would be called those in the West, And then the Western, the Israeli would say, the Babylonians, on the other hand. And this was an ongoing thing. I think the Babylonian was, a guy who babbled. Really, that's how they saw it. And the Israeli was, I think, I don't know if he was dumb or they saw it with a certain kind of cliche, right? But I know what it is from a scholarly point of view. The Jerusalem Talmud is very short and terse and to the point. And the Babylonian Talmud is, then and me and well, you take this and then. So that was obvious to those scholars, and that was a point of distinction. But I think this is a fact in time. I mean, there's, the American Jew is certainly not the Israeli Jew. And I think in politics, if you want to cut through the conspiracy theories and get to the truth of the matter, it's not a Jewish conspiracy. It's the Jews have different agendas here versus there. The American Jew uses Israel in a certain way in his life, right? I want to go and have my bar mitzvah and have my kids. I just want to know Israel's there. But I want a good lifestyle in America. The Israeli Jew says America can possibly fund endeavors in Israel, right? And the Jews in America should support us here in terms of yeshivas, Torah, books, rabbinic projects. Why? Because it's thought, obviously, that the land of Israel is a more authentic brand of Torah, right? And if you're going to be in Jerusalem, you probably have more prestige than in Bnei Brak, or not Bnei Brak, but New York. So that's not a law, but I think it's just understood that the Gedolim, in inverted commas, great rabbis, are in Israel. In America, to my knowledge, this might be a controversial point, but this is brought to my attention, America has never produced a Gadol. On American soil, American bred and raised, has never produced a Gadol, whereas Europe certainly did, and Israel certainly has. So there's a quality of aesthetic and authentic Judaism, at least in perception, from Israel, and then it weighs over. Just wearing a yarmulke. A lot of Jews won't want to wear yarmulke in America, but they do here. A lot of people will not want to keep Shabbos the way they do in Israel. Hebrew, how you speak Hebrew in Israel versus Israel, Hebrew in America. So there's a lot of, there really is two types of Jewish people when it comes down to that. The diaspora Jew and the Israeli Jew. And in my own personal work with Noahide, a lot of the American Jews don't understand Noahide. And I don't blame them. If I live in Shaker Heights in Cleveland, I might not be so keen on 7 Laws of Noah as an outreach rabbi. I mean, how does that really work? But in Israel, I'm in Sfat, and I'm on the computer, and I'm doing Light to Nations work. It's just kind of a natural thing. What else would I do in Israel in terms of outreach, if not for Jews? But in Israel, you feel everyone is already Jewish. You're looking at it, the Israelis are not going to learn from the American here, the Anglo, because we don't speak the language. Anglos here are then primarily focused on either Anglo yeshivish learning of their own kind or outreach to people in America. So there's a natural feel to do outreach towards America, whereas the American doesn't feel the need to outreach at all in terms of to Israel or to the non-Jew. The outreach in America is your Chabad house, and you're going to move into Dayton, Ohio, and there's 5,000 Jews there. You better believe I'm going to do outreach to the Jews. And well before I'm going to do a Noahide endeavor. Why would I reach out to the Noahides if I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and there's 5,000 unaffiliated Jews in my town that don't even know what Shabbos and Tefillin is? But then again, on the flip side, you can see why in Israel it's a natural tendency in the land to make that outreach towards, let's say, Light to Nations and non-Jews. Because here, people that I know, there's no such thing as they don't know what tefillin is. I mean, there is, but you're talking about Israelis that fried out in the army, and trust me, they're not looking for Anglo Rabbi David Katz that doesn't speak a proper Hebrew to show them that. Sorry to tell the truth to that. But there are Lubavitchers and Breslovers here doing outreach to them. So the system is fine, but the Anglo in Israel has a natural function, and it's different than the natural American Jewish function.
All right. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Certain problems that occur in Israel more than occur in the United States, even among Jews, and mainly I'm talking about Ashkenaz Sephardi. It's a much bigger deal here than there is in the United States. You almost don't really know about the United States, but here you don't just have different customs. You have, I'm not sending my kid to a Sephardi school, or there's a boycott, or we don't like this prime minister because he's Sephardi, whatever it is. So talk a little bit more about that. Why is it such an issue here in Israel?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first was returning to Judaism, the Bo Tshuva, I went to a bris milah at a Chabad house for a meal. And there was a pamphlet about the Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi. And I was saying, which one am I? I don't know. Because usually I like to think I'm the underdog, right? And I was saying, am I a Sephardi Jew? And, it doesn't come up. I never met one before. And so, most communities in America are Ashkenazi, European of lineage. In Israel, the Ashkenazis founded the land of Israel. Let's call it the 1940s and 1950s. But in the times of the first, it's not called the first Aliyah, whatever Aliyah it was that brought the Sephardim from Morocco and all the Sephardic lands, right? I forget which number aliyah it was. My in-laws came on those aliyahs. So that's when the first Sephardim came. Imagine Israel was a white country. I mean, that is really weird to think about. It was an old, the old Ashkenazi white guy, that was Israel. And then the Sephardim came in the millions. They brought them over as a chance to connect to the Holy Land, and it was a scam. Not entirely, but the Ashkenazim wanted numbers. They brought them over. They weren't treated so well. There's a lot of animosity to this day over how they were treated. And because of that, you really have, I would call it a light racial war. Light. Right? It's not deep, hatred. And intermarriage happens. For example, I'm Ashkenazi. I married Sephardi, Moroccan. And it's catching on in Israel. It's pretty popular. Not rampant, but it's certainly not frowned upon to marry Ashkenazi Sephardi. In fact, it's somewhat interesting. It has challenges, halachically, practically, socially. If you can overcome those challenges, it's very rewarding. But outside the realm of marriage, that friction exists. There's never been a prime minister who's Sephardi.
Right.
The Haredishkeit of the Sephardim is looked differently than Ashkenazi. It's different. The cultures are different. Their attitudes are different. Their divrei Torah is different. If you're going to go to the synagogue, it's radically different. If you're sitting through a minyan of Sephardi versus Ashkenazi, the Sephardim sing a much different tune and much more often. They're arranged sitting differently. It feels differently. It doesn't feel Jewish like I know it from back home. I'll tell you that. The Ashkenazi shul, that's what you're used to. Kind of like the chazan, the cantor, singing the song. But in Sephardi, it's like an Arabic, Middle Eastern feel to where they sing. And it's radically different.
Yeah, at one point, actually, I want to make a few points here. Great analysis there. If you look at, let's say, the Slichot before Rosh Hashanah, Ashkenaz, it's about a week or a week and a half before, depending on when Motzi Shabbat falls off. It's an interesting custom we have. It's very sad and very whiny. The Sephardim, it's a month, and it's a huge party.
Right.
Anyone that's been to the Kotel, you have these young teenagers. It's like they're going to the mall. They're hanging out. They show up at about 5 in the morning. They have a drum kit and horns, and it's a ball. And they love it. So the Sephardim have more of a love of life to it, I think, and we have maybe more of a serious. When I say we, I mean the Ashkenaz. So that could explain part of the friction. You also have things that Sephardim will call religious Ashkenaz Jews dosim. Now, dosim is a slur. It's a Yiddish word that really means datim, but calling it dosim is a way of making fun of them because they're Ashkenaz. And then you have Ashkenaz religious Jews that will refer to Sephardim as incompetent. So the thing goes on, this feud, even among religious Jews, and it's something we've got to fix, at least in some form, if we want Mashiach to come in a peaceful way, because we cannot fight between Jews. Obviously we've had it since biblical times, but we've got to try to fix it. And one more thing, also even extends to the sports world in Israel. If you're Ashkenaz, you're told you play basketball. If you're Sephardi, you're told you play soccer. And you see that also time and time again. Rabbi Katz, a few more minutes we have left with you. Let's talk about money in American products. Again, going back to the Anglo situation. We're here, we're coming Anglos. We're told as kids that if you're Jewish and you're somewhat intelligent, you're making at least 6 figures American dollars. That doesn't seem to happen here. How is that we adapt, that we kind of have to suck it up and live here even though we're not going to make as much money?
So once you start talking money, everything's different here. Like money and food, right? I remember as a bacher in yeshiva, you get munchies at night. You're hungry, right?
Right.
In America, you go to the store, you get chips and dip, Doritos, Mountain Dew, ice cream, whatever you get. I remember that first year, 2001, a lot of the brands they have now weren't here yet. And I was really shocked that every single Makolet, every store, gave me 2 options, Bamba or Bisley. I'm saying, really? Every store wants me to buy either Bamba or Bisley? And I was refused to go for Bamba, so it was Bisley. And now I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's just kind of a strange snack food in Israel. And, my mother comes to visit, and I tell her when we go to the store, we gotta, you really can't go for the American brands. She says, I have a lifestyle. Okay, you go for it. So we go to the store, and she's appalled by the bill, like 1,000 shekels. And she says, what did I buy for 1,000 shekels? All right, you bought your Heinz ketchup. You bought your Coca-Cola. All right, you bought, Heinz barbecue sauce. You bought every American product in the store. You didn't want to buy anything Israeli. And you will find the price go up. When we first got married, I also had this dream that I was going to have American products. And I wasn't making too much then. It was the Kollel, traditional 1,200 shekels a month. And we went to the store, and we had all these high hopes and expectations, starting the marriage right. We're going to eat, diet food and good. And I thought we would have chicken salad, for dinner. This was my diet I was going to have. It was going to be good. I didn't know the price of meat would kill you. And, just buying meat sets you back like you wouldn't believe. So, the American products and lifestyle is different. This is why, and this is a big surprise to many, this is why falafel exists. It's a cheap, filling meal. Yeah. That's how Israelis think.
Yeah, it's about 12 shekels, and if you eat one, maybe you need two, but it would keep you pretty much the rest of the day. Real quick, Robert, because we're up against the end of the show, we'll have to have you on again to talk about this topic. Of course, we love having you on all the time. But in about 45 seconds, if I could do this to you, at the end of the day, even though we have these difficulties, these annoyances, whatever, why is it important for Jews to be here and live here?
It's important to be here and live here because the redemption depends on it. God's bringing us here. Whether you agree with the state of Israel or not, it is a fact and reality. God wants it. He's bringing us here. It's going to happen. We eventually have to come. Strength in numbers. We can be here. Everyone can do it. It does require hard work and determination, but it's the M is here. It's a better quality of life, and I'll end with that note. It really is a better lifestyle in Israel.
All right. Again, that's Rabbi David Katz, gergear.com, also somazal.com. He is the author of the new book, The World of the Ger. Go ahead and pick that up. Again, this is a Prophecy on Israel National Radio. The show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm also on JApp, www.j-app.me. You can download the show there. And, of course, email me, messiahhour@gmail.com. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, or potential show topics, email me there. We'll try to get it done. This is a Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.